tends to just...
But can I mention one thing?
And after hours of pomp and circumstance, President Trump is using his executive authority, promising major changes.
Horrible it is that Donald Trump is talking about
that's what
all
you,
of these
I'm
people.
sorry,
You know what I
that's
think
what you
is
said.
horrible?
You said.
Whoopi, you know
you
what's
said.
horrible?
For years, The View built its brand on attacking Donald Trump, throwing insult after insult, convinced they were untouchable. Whoopi Goldberg refused to say his name, Joy Behar mocked his supporters, and the entire show became less about debate and more about a daily anti-Trump rant session. But when Trump returned to power, everything changed. ABC executives panicked, advertisers pulled out, and before anyone could stop it, The View was finished. After decades of dominating daytime TV, was this finally the moment Trump got the last laugh?
Because if you're going to be the president, because if you're going to be the president of the United States, it says very profoundly that you have to be born in this country.
The drama between Donald Trump and The View has been brewing for years, and at this point, it's less of a feud and more of an all-out war. Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar have made a career out of bashing Trump at every possible opportunity. They've called him every name in the book, questioned his intelligence, and even suggested, more than once, that he's a danger to democracy. Every time his name comes up, it's like someone pressed the meltdown button on The View's set.
Whenever you're on with us, we're very happy.
Well, we love it.
Okay, so I'm going to take you at your word that you have not decided yet when you're going to run, but you're thinking about it, and you've expressed some of your views, which are controversial and in many ways, but
not to her.
Well, not to her. Okay, you're a Republican.
And Trump? He's never been one to take an insult lying down. While The View ran its mouth, he made it very clear that he couldn't care less about their opinions. He has mocked the show as a sinking ship, called the hosts nasty, angry women, and brushed off their criticisms as the desperate ramblings of people who have no real influence. He even suggested that the only thing keeping The View alive was people hate-watching to see what ridiculous thing they'd say next. This back and forth wasn't just petty, it became a daily spectacle. Every insult from The View turned into a headline. Every Trump clapback sent social media into an absolute frenzy. At one point, the feud got so bad that ABC executives had to step in and tell the hosts to tone it down. But of course, they didn't listen.
Did you just point at me?
Yes.
Listen, I don't have Trump derangement. Let me tell you what I have.
Okay.
I have I'm tired of people starting a conversation with Mexicans or liars and rapists.
The chaos behind the scenes at The View was even messier than what played out on live TV. ABC executives had seen the warning signs for months: ratings slipping, advertisers pulling out, and the show becoming less of a talk show and more of a Trump-bashing circus. The executives knew they had to step in before things got worse, so they delivered a clear message to the hosts: tone it down or face the consequences.
The degree to which they attacked Trump at that White House Correspondents' Dinner was really it was so over the top. It was like making everyone uncomfortable.
Really?
It was really over the top.
Whoopi and Joy, they weren't having it. Being told to ease up on their anti-Trump tirades was like asking them to stop breathing. These women thrived on attacking Trump, and they weren't about to start playing nice just because the network's profits were taking a hit. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Some staff members sided with the network, realizing that alienating half the country wasn't exactly a smart business move. Others were just as stubborn as Whoopi and Joy, convinced that The View should go down swinging, no matter the cost.
Hey, you know who? Stay away from the stairways. Because, people put the leg out to trip you going down the stairs. Watch out.
And speaking of cost, things at ABC weren't looking good. As the show became more divisive, big-name advertisers started pulling out, unwilling to risk backlash from their conservative customers. That meant budget cuts, and budget cuts meant layoffs. Staff members who had been with the show for years suddenly found themselves out of a job. Morale was at an all-time low, and the once glamorous The View studio started feeling more like a sinking ship.
When the President of the United States whips up people to beat the hell out of people.
The numbers were plummeting, and ABC executives were freaking out. The View, once a daytime TV powerhouse, was losing viewers at an alarming rate. And the reason? People were over it. What used to be a talk show where different opinions clashed and a lively debate had turned into a predictable, one-sided rant fest. Every single episode felt like an anti-Trump therapy session, and half the audience had had enough.
The ratings are rolling in, and according to the numbers, TV viewing on election night dropped off sharply from 4 years ago.
Viewers who just wanted real discussions and different perspectives started tuning out. Even some liberals, who usually ate up everything Whoopi and Joy spewed, were getting tired of the constant hysteria. It wasn't just about politics anymore. The show had become unbearable. And when people stop watching, advertisers start panicking.
A few passing jokes were fine, but they twisted the knife big on Trump in that. And you could see Trump just getting like angrier and angrier and more upset.
Big-name sponsors wanted nothing to do with the mess. Companies like to sell their products to everyone, not just a loud, angry political niche. When major brands started pulling their ads, it was a financial disaster for ABC. Losing one or two sponsors? Fine. But when big corporations started running for the hills because they didn't want to be associated with The View's endless drama, that was the beginning of the end.
This is not good karma, you know? That's what I was thinking at the time. I was two tables away from Trump, and I'm looking at him like, man, this is too much.
The moment Trump secured his second term, his supporters were ready for payback, and The View was at the top of the list. For years, they had watched Whoopi, Joy, and the rest of the panel mock, smear, and attack Trump and his voters without consequences. But now, tables had turned, and people wanted action. It started as an online movement, with Trump's base demanding that something be done about media platforms that openly pushed misinformation and silenced opposing voices. The complaints weren't just about The View. They were about the entire mainstream media machine that had spent years twisting narratives and getting away with it. And with Trump back in power, he wasn't going to let it slide.
By the stroke of his Sharpie, President Trump today ushered in new and old policy and ideas.
In a move that shocked the media world, Trump signed a controversial executive order targeting networks that, in his view, had abused their influence to spread lies and suppress conservative voices. ABC, the parent network of The View, was directly in the crosshairs. The order called for stricter regulations on broadcasting licenses, which meant that networks like ABC couldn't just peddle propaganda and expect zero consequences. ABC executives had seen enough. Between The View's plummeting ratings, angry advertisers, and constant scandals, the network was bleeding money and credibility. The backlash was too big to ignore. The show had become a liability, and with Trump back in office and his executive order looming over the media, keeping the air view was no longer worth the headache.
3 evening broadcasts for news. Yes. Everyone sat down around the TV and they watched these 3 news outlets. Now you look at where people consume news, 54% of American adults say they get news from social media.
The final decision? Cancel it. After nearly 3 decades, ABC pulled the plug on one of daytime TV's most controversial talk shows. The official reason? The network claimed it was reassessing its programming strategy. But everyone knew the truth. The View had dug its own grave, alienating half the country and turning what was once a lively debate show into a predictable, angry echo chamber.
We begin on this new message that Donald Trump's FCC happens to be sending to one Whoopi Goldberg over at that show that I know you love to hate.
The industry reaction was immediate and explosive. Liberals screamed censorship, claiming the show was shut down as revenge for speaking out against Trump. Conservatives celebrated, saying it was about time ABC stopped pushing one-sided political propaganda. Media watchdogs debated whether this was about free speech or simply a business decision. After all, no network keeps a show that hemorrhages money and advertisers. Inside ABC, the mood was chaos. Staff members were blindsided, some of the hosts were furious, and Whoopi? She refused to comment, probably still refusing to say Trump's name. Meanwhile, Joy Behar was reportedly furious, calling the decision a disgrace to democracy. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.